So you want to play as a Crusader in Diablo Immortal? Well, today I'm going to present you guys the Crusader Ultimate Guide. That's going to help you determine whether you want to play as a Crusader, and if you do want to play as a Crusader, it's going to help you know how to actually go about playing as one. We're going to be doing a complete dive into what are the best characteristics, what are the weaknesses, what are his strengths. We're also going to be talking about what might possibly be the best strategy to actually level up your character. So if you want to be a Crusader and you like what we're doing here on the channel, a like would be greatly appreciated. And don't forget to show a little bit more love by hitting that thank you button. So without further ado, let's take a look and dive into how to play as a Crusader. So a Crusader is a very interesting character in Diablo Immortal. A Crusader will be using holy theme abilities to kill their enemies within range, while also providing a variety of great party-wide buffs to their allies. Not only is it a very good class to use playing solo, but it's also a very good class to use when playing with other characters. The Crusaders are an excellent choice for anybody who is brand new to the game, who enjoys the concept of a holy warrior, or just someone who just wants to dish out a ton of damage in an area of effect, because that is where he shines, in area of effect damage. So what are the strengths that the Crusader has? Let's take a look at what those are. One of the most important strengths of a Crusader is the speed and movement that he possesses. The Crusader is definitely one of the fastest classes within the game, which makes it very interesting because since the Crusader kind of falls within the tank category, being able to be very mobile and agile as a tank makes it a very, really good class. Now, not only is it good for playing solo, but also playing with a group. Now, another strength that the Crusader has is one of its skills called Draw and Quarter. This lets him mount on a Celestial Warhorse for a momentum of speed boost. Now, while he does this, he will be dragging the enemies that are surrounding him and being able to drag them behind and causing damage. This skill will allow the Crusader to easily reposition their character and reposition enemies who need a maximum AoE damage. So if you want to make sure there are some enemies stacked in a certain area and you want to go gather another set of enemies and kind of put them together so you can hit them with that AoE effect, then you are going to be able to do that. Not only that, but you will also be able to dish a lot of damage while you're mounted on your horse. Now, you won't have any problems when it comes to weaker enemies because the Crusader is relentless when it comes to AoE damage. Now, don't get it twisted, guys. As a Crusader, you also will be able to provide a lot of buffs when it comes to playing with other people. For example, one of the skills called Conjuration of Light is a better skill which will make all your entire party invulnerable to the damage for 3 seconds, which can be very huge when it comes to critical boss fights or critical damage. The stuff that makes the Crusader such a fun and enjoyable character, of course, is his movement speed and his defensive abilities, because being able to move fast as a tank is always a plus. Combine this with the wide variety of stunts and interrupts that he's able to do, the class is definitely going to be one of the highest sought out classes within the game, not only for PvP, but also for PvE. I know. So now that you know the strengths, now it's time for us to talk about the weaknesses, because the class does possess a little bit of set of weaknesses. Now, one of the biggest disadvantages that the Crusader has is, of course, its skill to Draw and Quarter. Remember, we kind of focused on this one and said that it was actually one of the strengths of the character, but it's also one of the weaknesses. The reason is because that particular skill is going to be the one that you're mostly going to be using. It's going to provide a good amount of movement, but it also leaves the Crusader open to a counter from a boss or other players in PvP. In addition to that, the character will also be able to get stunned or slowed while he's on top of the horse, which makes it kind of a drawback. Now, if you mistime this ability, this could leave you in a very vulnerable position and will also leave you in a close range of melee, which will be very detrimental to you and also your build. Now, staying within the topic of that particular ability and the rest of the abilities that the Crusader possesses is the fact that the cooldown time that it takes for you guys to actually activate these abilities are in a very long cooldown. This will leave you kind of wanting to button smash and noticing one particular thing that's so annoying and so detrimental when you're playing a game, not being able to use your ability when you mostly need it, because you used it when you kind of really didn't need it. So knowing when to actually use your abilities is going to be very focal point with the Crusader, but I wish they would reduce the cooldown of some of these abilities to make him a little bit more enjoyable and also not making feel like you're dead weight when you're playing with a group because you pretty much just ran out of abilities. Now, another strength that the Crusader does possess could also be part of his weakness because the Crusader is basically the king of AoE damage. If you need someone to go do a massive amount of damage in a big area of effect, then the Crusader is the one you're going to be calling. Unfortunately, when it comes to single target damage, he is very, very poor because the Crusader won't be an ideal choice to pick if you're trying to solo or just kind of primarily focus on one particular boss. But due to the fact that he does have some great potential movement, the Crusader are often expected to act as a scout for the rest of the party, but you risk overextending yourself and getting separated from the group and might get a little bit carried away, and you will be a detriment to your group. So those are primarily the main weaknesses that the Crusader has. If for some reason they were to enhance the cooldown when the game gets released, the Crusader will be a rock star. Alright, so now that you know the strengths, now that you know the weaknesses, now it's time for us to talk about what you should focus as a Crusader when it comes to your stats and your attributes. Which ones should you prioritize? Now, regardless of the class, offensive rating and defensive rating should be your top attribute. Every primary attribute point, strength, fortitude, vitality, willpower, intelligence, provides 1 point of offensive rating and defensive rating. So your primary attribute priority should be strength. Beyond the boost of offense rating and defense rating mentioned above, it also provides you a +4 damage per point. Fortitude is also important because it provides you armor and armor penetration. Armor penetration raises your critical hit chance, although there is a diminishing return once you reach the endgame. Vitality provides you +3 life per point, and you will have to build this up alongside with damage increase attributes to survive the endgame. Willpower boosts potency and resistance. Potency improves the duration of your harmful effect on enemies, while resistance reduces how long harmful effects last. It may be useful in a build that focuses primarily on bleed and other debuffs, so do keep that in mind. Last but not least, guys, is the one that you should probably not focus too much on, which is intelligence. This is the worst primary stat of the Crusader because it provides an additional benefit beyond the 1 point boost to offense rating and defensive rating. So don't focus on too much on that. Focus on the other ones we mentioned. Now, as far as special attributes, which ones should you prioritize? Primary attributes are almost always better than special attributes due to the offensive and defensive rating boost. But if you're picking between unique attributes, you should prioritize the following: critical hit chance, critical hit damage, movement speed, cooldown reduction, and all things that increase damage. Now let's talk about the Crusader skills. Now, I'm not going to go over every single skill. What I am going to do is I'm going to tell you guys which I believe to be the best ones. The Crusader has 2 primary abilities and additional secondary abilities. On top of that, these abilities allow you to do ultimate ones. So the first one I want to mention, which I believe is one of the best primary ones, is Punish, which you will unlock at level 1. This attacks an enemy in front of you and increases your block chance by 30% for 2 seconds. The ultimate will give you the ability to hit all enemies in front of you for the next 12 seconds. This I believe to be one of the best primary ones to have if you guys are going with that one. The next skill that I want to focus on is called Spine Shield. Now this hurls a spine shield inflicting 4,000 plus damage to all enemies in its path. The shield will return to you, pulling enemies in its path to you and deal an additional 3,000k damage. Maximum 3 charges. Players can only be affected by spinning shield once every 3 seconds. Then you have the other one that's called Consecration. Consecration to the ground for you deals 20k damage to all nearby enemies for a total of 6 seconds. The next one is Condemn, which is going to build up a massive explosion, dealing 9k plus damage to all nearby enemies for 3 seconds, activating again to detonate early, but for less damage in smaller radius. Then you have the last one, which is called Draw the Quarter, which is going to mount a Celestial Warhorse for 5 seconds, dispelling all movement impairing effects, increasing your movement speed by 65%, and replacing your primary attack with Strike. Holy Chains will bind up to 8 nearby monsters and drag them as you ride and repeatedly deal 2,000 plus damage. Now, those are the ones I wanted to focus on, which I consider to be the best ones, but in addition to that, he does have other set of skills. Now that you guys know the best skills, let's talk a little bit about Paragon points. And I'm not going to go too much in depth of this because this is going to pretty much going to be mostly on the build guides that I'm going to be putting together for each class and where you guys should put Paragon points. But overall, in general, guys, if you are playing as a Crusader, your number one priority when picking Paragon points should always prioritize damage and life. Now, remember to activate the Paragon tree that you want so you guys can know exactly where you're going to be able to invest your points. With that being said, Vanquisher will be the best one to deal damage, so make sure you keep that in mind. Now, with all this information you have about the Crusader and our ultimate guide, you should be able to go on and head on over to Diablo Immortal and crush every single enemy that comes your way, clear out any dungeon, and tons of ways that you will be able to obliterate with a very well-built Crusader. Now, of course, if you want to make sure you have the most amazing and most powerful build for the Crusader, make sure you check out this video that's going to be popping up right now on the screen so you guys can get your Crusader build ready to go when the game releases and know exactly how to build it and put it together. I hope you guys are enjoying our Diablo Immortal content. If you are, do me the huge favor, guys, drop a comment, drop a like, but most importantly, subscribe to the channel, turn on all your notifications so you guys won't miss when our videos go live. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next video.